Okay, I hope this works. We'll see. I wanted to comment there. I just finished my workshop, the last of the year, the somatics of scarcity. This was one, I want to say the best workshop I've ever, I want to say received, because the vibe is co-created between all of us, and we had so many amazing questions, and so we went so deep, and I'm so thankful to everyone who showed up in this space. So if you're one of those people, thank you. I'm coming here because I wanted to bring up something that has come up in this space and that I think everybody should hear. That was something that I needed to hear. And honestly, although I'm channeling it, it's coming from my father who passed away last year. Someone asked a question, and with money specifically, we were talking about money and scarcity. Money is a placeholder for so many other things. Safety, belonging, neglect, all those things. And a person asked a question, and I can't even remember what was the first question, because often what happens is in those spaces is that we ask questions, but truly there's another question that we are kind of scared to ask that is underneath this question. And so we ask this question, and then based on the answers, we realize there's something deeper. And so we go deeper, and this person went deeper, and I'm so thankful. But so the underlying question was basically around touching the shame that we have around desiring. And I didn't name my company Erotic Self-Liberation for nothing. And funny enough, now I'm just thinking about it, that I renamed myself on Instagram, at least, Erotic Self-Liberation right before my father passed. So this is a perfect circle moment. I answered to this person with basically a story, which I think a story is much better than anything else. A few months ago, I was living in Marseille, in the south of France, and I was staying, it's been 3 years, I just got an apartment, but it's been 3 years that I've been subletting apartments and moving everywhere where I could and where somebody would take me for 3 years, every month sometimes. This is not about this tonight, it's not about this. But I was sitting at this person's desk, and at some point, and I know God asked me to be in this apartment for this specific reason, because I hated this apartment. I think this person was a hoarder, which I really don't like for my own reasons. But I look up at some point, and so it was really hard to see things, because when you have too much, you can't really see details. There's so much that your body is always looking at stuff. It doesn't know where to look. But at some point, I was sitting at this desk, and I look to my left, and this person had plenty of post-its and notes that they would write to themselves. And this one post-it I saw, and it was saying in French, great is the enemy of good. Of good enough, sorry. Great is the enemy of good enough. And that floored me. Because if you know me and if you're close to me, if you're a friend of mine, I would have been telling you over and over and over this thing that I've been saying to myself first and foremost, which is good is the enemy of great. So exactly the opposite of what I saw on this post-it this day in Marseille. And I was floored. And so first I want to explain what those things meant. When I said good is the enemy of great, what I would refer to as, this was a worldview for me, still is, don't settle for good when perhaps around the corner there is great awaiting for you. This was the worldview. Now, what this person was saying, and I had to Google it because this was really what I mean, it was completely wild to me to hear this. So I really had to Google it because I was like, what do you mean? What do you actually mean by this? And so I Googled it and I asked people, and basically what it means, great is the enemy of good enough, is that when you keep looking for great, you completely just pass the good enough that is right around you. So somatically, I'm a somatic practitioner. Somatically, what I think they are seeing this worldview is when you're looking for great, you might do frog jumping, leaping everywhere, width, versus when you're looking at good enough, you stay still. And maybe what you do is scuba diving. You go deeper, but you don't go into width everywhere. You don't pass the things that are here. You can spend a lifetime doing this, right? It's pass the things that are good here, just looking for the great all the time, externally. This really shocked me so much, okay? Because I didn't even know I could get there. Now, I want to be true with you, this is really political. I, as a person who was born in poverty, as a person who was told as a female body, as a black female body in the world, I was as a half Congolese person, I was told that to get a little bit of that is enough and I shouldn't ask for more. So I would never say that one or the other worldview is better than the other one. I do think they speak to different times in your life, and you pick whatever works for you in this time of your life. Now, I want to speak to something different than those two things, and something outside of those two things. And that is, and I think that's what the person was coming with in this workshop, or at least that's what we touched on, is what if you want something, but you fear you will never get it? And here comes the story of my father. My father, who was an absent father his whole life, but at the end of his life, last 3 months that he was in the hospital and really suffering and dying, actively dying, I met him for the first time. So in 2024, when the year ended and people asked me, what is the person that you've met this year that you're really happy you met? I would say my father. He was in his hospital bed. He was dying. It was so clear. It was clear by the doctors. It was clear when you would look at him. He died at 64 and he looked like he was 90 years old. It was clear that he was dying. But my father, although he was not a good father, he was not a father. He was an active, or he was a really loved community member, especially in the Congo, in Kinshasa, where he was born and raised. And he came back when I was 18. So more than 10 years before he passed. And so when he was in the hospital and it was looking really bad, people, even from Kinshasa, traveled just to see him. If you know how hard it is to get a visa from the Congo, I mean, most of you will not know, but this is just beyond hard. It's beyond hard. So people came from everywhere to see him. People who he hadn't seen in 10 years, 20 years, and I would be told all the stories about my father and how much of a big man he was and how charismatic he was and how incredible, and how he pushed himself to do the things that nobody else around him thought would be possible for themselves. And because he went after this, they thought, maybe that's possible for me too. If this nigga's coming after that, maybe I can. My father in his hospital bed, looking so small and so fragile and about to die, would often look at me and say, let's go have lunch. Let's go. We're going for lunch. And he would put one leg out of the bed and act as if he was about to get out. And you have to understand, my father was all those wires and all those things hooked up, and he knew he was not getting out of the bed. And we had to tell him, you're not going out of the bed. I told him several times, you're not going out of the bed. There's no lunch anymore. The doctors told him. Life told him. He felt it. He didn't want to die. My father didn't want to die at 64. He wanted to live. But he still asked the question, and he still showed the vulnerability of desiring more. And so I say this to you because I really need you to understand in this moment what I learned as his child was the most amazing lesson he could give me. And again, he was an absent father. He was never in my life. He showed me that the most vulnerable thing you could do in the face of refusal and end and loss is to still say, but I want more. I'm not done. I want more. And that was the most human thing he could do. You can judge it sad, you can judge it, angry, all of those things. I received it as, this is the most human one person can do, is in the face of no and knowing that we won't get further, still ask for going for lunch. And so I started to ask myself, what are the places in my life that I'm so sure that I won't get anything that I'm not asking for lunch anymore? Not because I want to get the lunch, because life is like that. We will all die, this is for sure. We will all die. You have survived plenty of rejection, plenty rejection that you thought you would never come alive out of those. There are plenty of no's you had to receive and be with. Potentially there are still no's that you still live in your body, you still carry, as if it's saying something true about you. And so let this video be exactly for those parts of you. Admitting to yourself that you want something, especially when you know maybe it won't happen, is the most human thing you could do. And it's the most beautiful part of you could do. Not because maybe you won't have it and so therefore rejection is so painful. Of course, that's obvious. But because there's somebody in the room that is watching you and is thinking, this is the most human thing you could do in this moment, is to admit, I want more. And this person doesn't have to be your child, doesn't have to be in person. It's you. The person is you. If living in this world, living embodied, means loss, you will lose absolutely everything, including yourself, your body, the people you love most on planet Earth, the places you lived in, the places you wanted to live in, you never did, the places that have been completely transformed and, destroyed by colonialism, like all those things, those dreams, like all of the things we lose. If life is a process of release over and over and over and over and over again, rebirth and death and rebirth over and over again, it would be so unfair that you tell yourself, I will only ask for things and admit myself that I want this thing if I am sure I can get it. It's immature. I'm going to be for real. It's immature and it's a coward move. Because yes, there are things you won't get. There are things you have not been getting. And that says nothing about your value in the world or whether or not you actually deserve those things. My father deserved to stay alive, but he didn't. And so I wanted to share that with y'all because there is something about, if you live in this world that has projected identity on you and is limiting your access to resources because of those identities in any way, shape, or form, wherever you sit on those intersections. I think what you actually deserve, and is part of dignity, is to not refuse yourself. At least not be the only one who doesn't refuse yourself. And that means holding and seeing and witnessing those desires, especially when perhaps you fear that they will not be met. Life is unconditional in this way. It's not because you do good you will get good, and it's not because you do bad that you will get bad. I mean, if the world was like this, I think life would be different on planet Earth. But at least you get to witness yourself fully in those desires. And it's not about getting them. It's not, because you can get them, but then, you will also lose them because you will die. They will die, It's about seeing yourselves fully in this vulnerability that is so human and so tender. And through this process of witnessing, that's what connects you. Like my father being vulnerable enough to show me that he wanted to get out of this hospital bed, although everything was telling him he's not. That made me connect to him so deeply in ways that I can only more than a year after, I'm still unpacking. And tonight, I told the story. I'm telling you the story tonight, but I told the story to people who came to the workshop. And hopefully that ripples out in their world, in their lives. And if that touches you, potentially you send this video to a person who needs to hear this. And that's the legacy of my father. And funny enough, I started with apartments. I got the apartment that I'm gonna live in, after 3 years of being displaced, on the day of his birthday. I realized after, because he always had a sense of humor. So, if anything, for all the people who couldn't be here, who won't be here, who will die too early, who will leave too early, whatever it is, let yourself long enough that it touches everybody in the room. Not because you want it and you need to get it. Don't be this entitled motherfucker that you will only tell yourself that you want it if you know that you will get it. That's so small. We're talking about hoarders and billionaires, but this is billionaire energy, if you ask me. Long for what it creates inside of you, which is this reality, this intimacy with yourself, that you are so fucking human. You want this so bad, and you're scared that you might never get it. That will not make it easier. That will just make you human. Just human. And that's all you're asked to be on planet Earth, is to be as fully, if you're going through this shit, y'all, if you have to pay the taxes and go through all of this that we have to go through, at least be human. Fully live the intimacy of being human with yourself. Witness yourself with no reservation. That's what you deserve. And that's abundance. Okay, I will talk to you another day.